So we're back. Just want to welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Just excited to get our players back on campus. With class starting on Monday, we gave them this past week to just get away a little bit, and some chose to do that. And guys, we return this weekend and then focus on the things that we can control. So obviously the news from everything is pretty much what it is, and our guys are very, very focused right now on the task at hand, and that's where from my perspective, it's things just don't change with me. We're going to focus on the things that we can control. We're not going to blink. We're not going to look for excuses. We're not going to focus on the things that we have no time or energy to spend on because it doesn't do us any good. So I've given our guys a charge, both our staff and our players. We're going to have this is going to be our focus for the next 3 months, to sharpen your axe. That's going to be our theme. And the whole objective for me is we're going to find a way to improve this football team in every way over these next several months. And taking it from the famous Abraham Lincoln quote where he talks about if he was given 6 hours to chop down a tree, he'd spend the first 4 sharpening his axe. And that's all about preparation. It's all about improving the tools that you work with and getting them to the highest level possible. So we have, I believe, the #1 strength coach in America leading our strength staff, and so excited about him being able to develop our guys. And I want to challenge them all to develop mentally and physically and spiritually over this time. And that way, when we are told that it's safe to play, whenever that may be, that we will be ready. And that's the goal. That's the objective. And so that's what we can control is the things that we're doing here and how we take advantage of this time to be able to move this program forward and continue to build on the success we've had here in the past. So with that being said, questions?
Go ahead, Zach.
Tom, I recognize some of it's fluid, but in your mind, I guess kind of a sort of 2-part question, sort of paralleling one another. What are you hearing about kind of how a winter or a spring season could shape up? What does that maybe look like, at least in a rough way, in your mind? And how much are you communicating kind of on that with your players right now? Have you had any guys approach you about opting out? And have you had guys kind of come to you looking for maybe a sort of a real sort of concrete way forward, I guess? Or are they maybe you're trying to get them trained back into just sort of an off-season mentality?
Well, not really truly an off-season mentality, but just a time period that's a unique time period that we've not had in the past. There's obviously conversations going on about the possibilities of what the future would look like. There's still, as you mentioned, a lot of things that are very fluid, a lot of things we don't know, and that's why I try not to get into that game with our players. There's obviously a lot of things that can change between now and, a month from now. And so that's definitely going to have a variable effect on what happens moving forward. So I think from our players' perspective, and as I've met with our guys and met with our players and coaches and everybody that's part of our program is once again, it's like, what do we know? What can we control? And so as you look at all the different plans that are out there, I mean, obviously anywhere from, playing, and it looks like maybe even from January to, February, March, April, whatever that may look, that window of time has obviously a lot of different pros and cons to it, and people that in the Big Ten and are going to be making those decisions. But from our players' perspective, they have no control over that. So I mean, I know I keep saying it, but it is so very true. So and there have been some questions about, because obviously the future affects certain players on our team, guys that are in their final year of eligibility. There's a lot of variables involved with that, and the NCAA is in the process and hasn't got those things finalized at this point, but is in the process of going through and evaluating what that looks like. And so we'll know more about that probably in the next week or so. But bottom line is that we all can benefit from these next several months of developing our bodies and getting our minds sharper and getting our skills sharper so we can be a better football team when we do take the field.
All right, John Blau, then jeffrabjohns.
Hey, Tom, in terms of planning these next 3 months, how much clarity do you have in terms of how much time per week you have with them, how much they can be in the weight room, and how important is that period of time now, given that if there is a spring season, the development period and the off season might be shortened?
Yeah, for sure. Very, very important period here. So 12 hours is the number they've given us from the NCAA for the teams that are from conferences that are not playing in the fall. And so that includes weight training, conditioning, and running, as well as meeting time and some skill work. We have some parameters we can work with through that. Certain things we can't do, but there's several things we can do more than a normal off season. So, but it has to work within that 12 hours per week. And they have two off days, which is usually going to be Saturday and Sunday. And so, but we really feel very good about the plan. We weren't exactly sure how the hours were going to be assigned to us yet. Got some clarity on that yesterday and how that's going to look. But bottom line is a heavy emphasis on the weight room for us with sprinkled in skill development and technique development, some film study as well, to be able to keep the program moving forward and keep our guys growing and developing each and every week.
All right, jeffrabjohns and Tom Brew.
Hey, Coach, thanks for your time. First of all, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We've read a lot about options, about some plans have said maybe start in January. Some have maybe said spring football. Do you have a preference? Is there a plan out there you think makes the most sense right now?
Well, I try to work off of principles and things. You just say, these are three things that I say need to be accomplished in order for us to make a certain decision. It doesn't matter what it is. And so the three things I've kind of set up that I feel like are critical is, number one, it has to be, whatever time it is it safe for our players to come back and play? What has changed? Whatever standards are we able to meet now that we haven't met in the past that allowed us not to be able to play. So from a health and safety perspective, we've got to make sure that we have all those things answered from a testing perspective, the contact tracing, all the different things, the issues that were brought up to cause us to be delayed. And then number two, to me, to have a quality experience for our guys. I mean, I want it to be whatever window we feel like is best, to have a quality season where it can be a quality experience, and it can be, allow our players to feel that, man, this is a great thing to do and be a part of. And then number three, I just do not want to see us negatively impact 2021 season. I think that's a big variable involved to making sure that we're not putting too much of a workload on the body. So that's where, the later it goes, the less, I feel good about it. And so, but we've got to make sure we don't do anything to, I've seen some people talk about, a shortened spring and a shortened fall in 2021. I would not be in favor of that. I want to see us be able to have, keep 2021 secure in that season, and then do the best we can within other parameters to create a good scenario this winter or spring.
And as far as we've heard about 12 hours, we've heard about 20 hours. Could you kind of explain that exactly? What can you do with the 12 hours? And is it 12 hours now instead of 20? Is it 12 hours in addition to 20? Exactly what can happen? How many hours do you guys have?
That's a great question. So basically, if we were playing a normal season right now, we'd be under the 20-hour rule. And so within that, basically, so from in a week's time period, you have literally 20 hours that your players can be with you in the facility, in meetings, in practices, walkthroughs, lifting weights, running, film study. All the different things have to equate to 20 hours or less. Okay, in a given week, and obviously that includes a practice. Usually you can't go ever more than 4 hours in a given day. That's pretty standard procedure across a year. And so now, since the teams that are not in competition, they gave us 12 hours to work with. So basically, within that 12 hours, you've got everything I just mentioned. You wouldn't have your normal 2 to 3 hour practices mixed in there. Even the games count in that. And also usually when it's a lesser week like that in the off season, it's usually 8 hours in a traditional off season week. But then you also usually have 2 days off. Well, with the 12 hours, it's still 2 days you have to have off. But you within those basically, so for a 5-day window there, you can be 12 hours with your team doing football related activities.
All right, Tom Brew, then Rick Bozich.
Coach, this is going to be such a weird fall, more than likely, with some of the conferences playing and some not. Do you have any idea, looking forward, if you can, as to how much this might impact recruiting negatively with the other schools playing and you guys not playing?
Well, that's a big concern, without question. And once again, when you're told that this is what it's going to look like and be like, it's just, you have to adjust and adapt to it. So I don't know so much in this class, because our class is pretty close to being full at this point. And so I think it's probably more moving forward. I think really the biggest variable for me I believe is what really truly happens in the winter and spring, to how it might affect the true big picture of recruiting. Does it affect the 2021 season? And that's where I feel like, as long as we can keep it contained to the 2020 year, since the 2021 class, which goes with this year of recruiting, I see that not being affected as much. It's obviously not going to help. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's a positive thing for that. But bottom line is that, as it stands right now, those three conferences are playing and we're not. So that's going to be a tough pill to swallow as every week passes, and you have to sit there and watch it. I mean, just being honest, it's going to be hard to watch games on a weekend when you're supposed to be playing yourself. So not quite sure what that's going to feel like yet. So I've never experienced it myself, and not necessarily looking forward to it.
All right, go ahead, Rick, and then Jim Coyle.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Commissioner Warren spoke again yesterday and clarified his position. My question is, do you feel like the coaches in the league have been listened to, and what vehicle is there for you guys moving forward to make sure that the 14 coaches in the league are heard?
Well, I think, it's like anything else. When you go through and the situations happen, you go back and you evaluate the good and the bad of that situation, maybe the things you would do differently. We've done that as a Big Ten conference, and they're in the process of doing that right now. And where we feel like things maybe didn't end up the way we thought they should have been as coaches. And so I know the coaches have been very open and honest about that, in those meetings that we've had. And I think it's very critical that if mistakes are made, or in terms of things don't go the way you want them to go, then you got to address it. And I think that's it being in the process of occurring right now. Obviously those things are, behind closed door meetings, but at the same time, you just always want to feel like in any organization that you're a part of, that you have a voice and that your voice is heard, and that you're able to have an impact on decisions are made. But I also understand that there's a lot of decisions that are made, above a person, just like is it the case right here that I don't have complete control over it. And you have to accept that. You have to trust those decisions. And I've always said this from the beginning, I wanted to play, and I wanted us to be able to play. But I also said I only wanted us to play if the medical professionals told us it was safe to play. And so to me, that's where I was going to defer to. And obviously they would, give their information to the presidents and the chancellors, and they would make the ultimate decision. So at the end of the day, I think we all, there's a leadership principle of when there's a void in communication, negativity often fills that void. And so I think you have to really guard against that. And so we try to work hard with that in our staff and in our football organization we have here in Indiana. And as a leader, I really try to work hard to not have that negative voice. So I think you just have to work through those and to make sure that you learn from mistakes that were made in communication, if there were any, and you don't make them again.
All right, Jim, and then Aaron.
Hey, Coach. Thanks again for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great, sir. Tomorrow, the NCAA Board of Governors will vote on what will essentially give student athletes a 5th year of eligibility and 6 years to complete that. Any thoughts on how that will impact your team, college football, and the long-term ramifications on roster management going out from there?
Yes, it's an interesting development that we were all made aware of, just like you all read and saw it. It'll be, as you said, voted on tomorrow. I think it has a significant impact moving forward. I think as you look at the component of roster management, what that looks like, you basically have a whole class or a whole group of players, especially that senior class, that would be granted an additional year, and all the players would as well. And they're fleshing through what that really means and so we'll kind of wait and see until we get the final verdict when it comes out. But yeah, I just think that what happens is as you move forward, it's going to affect, recruiting classes, and just how you say, okay, because it's all based off of the 85. And so you have so many spots at each position that you set aside, so many linebackers, so many safeties, so many O-linemen, so many receivers, so forth, so on. And so, if you don't have the departures out of that group, then you can't replace those numbers. So there's no question. I can't really tell you clearly how it's going to impact everything. I'll have to see how the rules are totally finalized once they come out, but there's no question it will have an impact. And then, how schools decide to manage that situation will be probably specific to each school. And so you're going to see a varying degrees of impact, but without question, it will make a big difference. Yes.
Right, Aaron, and then Ken Bykoff.
Hey, Coach. Yeah, I don't know how much you can tell us about IU's representation on the Big Ten's task force for returning to play. But just wondering what, if any, you guys have, and I guess how happy were you that that was somewhat quickly implemented to try to look at options for getting back on the field and have some sort of season if it is safe?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not on that task force, but I do know for sure that IU is very well represented on that task force. And so very confident in the individuals that are representing us and the communication that we're able to have. So, I think from that perspective, there's no question. At the end of the day, everybody wants what's safe and healthy for our guys. And that's never been, ever remotely compromised, in my opinion. How you get there, decisions that are made, behind closed door meetings that I'm not a part of, have obviously taken place. But at the end of the day, we have a tremendous amount of very, very influential people at Indiana that are highly respected. And I feel good about the way that they're representing us at this point.
All right, Ken, go ahead, and then jeffrabjohns.
Coach, given all that the program has been building momentum over the past couple of years, just how do you temper your own frustration or disappointment with what's been with losing the season through no fault of your own, through no fault of anybody around you, especially when you mention the other leagues continuing to play, how hard that will be? How do you temper your own frustration and make sure that that doesn't then seep into the players?
That's a great question, and I just think, you know me well enough at this point. I'm a pretty transparent guy, and it's been very frustrating. This is the season that I look forward to. You come here and you start to build and you recruit and you develop and you get to a point where, you just have some certain things that that you really are excited about. And this year was one of them, with a lot of guys that got to play last year. A lot of those guys are back, and a lot of key contributors back, and definitely you always have question marks, but it was a season that I've been looking forward to, here for a while. And then you get it, pulled out from underneath you. And so it is tough. It's hard. And that's why initially, there was a whole bunch of disappointment. But then I had to flip a switch. I could not allow myself to stay there. I had to, to be able to live out, my own phrase of, we're not going to blink, and so, because I really didn't have any control over that decision, and I don't have to always agree with things, but, decision was made. And I had to flip a switch in my mind and say, okay, now that this is the decision that's been made, how do we make the best of this situation? How do we continue to build? Because that's the key. How can we continue to build this program? Because, I'm not going to look back. I'm not going to dwell on the past. I'm not going to dwell on the things I can't control. But I am responsible for my response. Talked about that to our team. There's as we always know, that there's, events happen in life and circumstances happen in life that we can't control. But how we respond to those events and those circumstances, that really defines the outcome of what's next. And so that's what I had to do. And that's what we're doing as a program. We talk about, sharpening our axe, and each individual guy sharpening his axe, and how that goes to every single coach, every single, person on our staff, every single player, and how we're going to approach these next several months. And because we will play again. And when we do, we're going to be ready.
All right, jeffrabjohns and John Blau.
Yeah, Coach, I just kind of wanted to follow up. How do you feel about the team and the parents all being on the same page moving forward?
Yeah, I feel good about that. I do. We've had several, meetings and Zoom calls with both groups, and had some, individual calls where the parents have chosen to call me and voice their, questions or concerns. And so I feel like that our guys are, I think they trust us. I do. I'm just being very honest about that. I think that we've taken, a long time to build that trust, for sure. And that's where I felt like sometimes there was some frustration on my end, because I felt like I didn't know what to tell them. There was so many things were kind of caught in limbo, and really made it tough to communicate with them. But at the same time, I always felt like I was open and honest about that, and we stayed through together. And I feel like that our parents and our players, they know that I truly care about our guys, and their safety and their health is number one priority. That's not going to change. Yes, we all want to play, and we all want to play in the worst way, but never at the expense of their health and safety. So I think we're all on the same page with that. And we got obviously more things to communicate as we know more. The eligibility piece is kind of the next big question that guys are asking. And as that becomes more clear the next week or so, then we'll even have some more conversations with those that are impacted by that. So, But I think at this point, I feel really good about where we are, and I feel really good about the relationship we have with our parents and their families.
All right, John Blau, then Matt Weaver.
I think Coach James Franklin in particular brought up the idea of the winter indoor facilities, potentially being able to use those. Obviously, you have familiarity with Lucas Oil. I mean, is that one of those that you would advocate or?
Well, there's a lot of different things going on. And I know that, basically I would think you just think about the indoor facilities in the Big Ten footprint, would kind of be, I would assume, the different ones. I don't know. I'm not privy to all those conversations right now, but obviously that would, because you have this part of the country, that time of the year, you would need to play indoors if you were playing in those months. A true spring, you wouldn't necessarily do that. But just trying to be creative, I'm sure, and just utilize those facilities that fall within the states that we have Big Ten schools in. That's pretty much the focus at this point.
All right, go ahead, Matt, then Zach Osterman.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Matt.
Just wanted to ask you, I know we've talked about recruiting, and I know you can't talk about, obviously, individual guys, but smaller class, you guys are up to 14 commits right now. Do you guys have kind of a general idea how many you got left you can use, and obviously what are your top targets remaining?
Well, right now we got a few more spots. Yeah, as you mentioned, it is a smaller class, so we are getting close to being, full. And so still focusing right now on a couple key spots. Offensive line is an area of focus, defensive line, and still, can see another defensive back, to be able to add. So those would kind of be the three key areas, in my opinion. Always looking for, a playmaker on offense at the receiver position is never out of the question, So, but it's definitely a smaller class, and since I've been here, and we knew that going in, we've kind of said that all along, and so it's made us very focused. But I've been very, very excited about the ones that we have been able to join on board and to be able to build off of that and just really kind of, continue to build off the momentum that we've had from last season and everything that we got going on for the future. So definitely a smaller class, but those are the key spots we're looking to fill.
Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
All right, Zach, and then we'll wrap up with one more from Ken Bykoff.
I guess, Tom, circling back, you talked about kind of, obviously it's kind of hypothetical until you get a way forward for the eligibility discussion, but just kind of what do you think? I guess, number one, have you had anybody approach you about opting out or not, if this does go into the winter or spring, just maybe wanting to put it down? And number two, kind of what are the considerations that you imagine are going to be most important for the guys that those eligibility sort of changes or exceptions, might offer?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I've had a few guys come talk to me, especially now that, when things were pretty much decided that the fall was not going to happen. And so, because even before, even the last couple of days where some things have surfaced about what the NCAA is proposing to do, guys really weren't sure, hey, do I, not knowing what the season was going to look like, and not knowing what eligibility is going to look like, that created a lot of stress, so getting some of those things answered will help, because guys just not knowing, hey, am I going to, everybody has always been very consistent in saying that, hey, if you opt out right now because of COVID, then you're going to keep your scholarship, which is absolutely true. That's no question that was going to happen. But that didn't necessarily guarantee anything in the future, because if a guy's used up his eligibility, then, there's scholarship numbers you got to deal with. And so, but now with some potential, loosening of that up a little bit, that makes a big difference. So I still don't want to say too much because I don't know until the rules get passed and voted on and completely, solidified if this is what it's going to be. But I do think without question, it's caused, when I went through, and matter of fact, we were still in fall camp and I knew there was a lot of unknowns, and I kind of went to some different position groups and started talking to some guys. This is before we were pulled off the field, but even then there were questions about all this, because guys want to have a quality experience. They want to have, they want to have a meaningful season. If this is going to be my last year as a senior, I want to make sure, I've had plenty of time to prepare, and I want to feel really good about the season we're going to have. And so, and not being, potentially cut short or this or that. There were just so many unknowns. So those conversations, yes, have taken place, and the guys have handled it the right way. They come to me and we talk man to man, face to face, and just sit down and kind of hash it out. So as I get more information and know what the rules are going to be and how it affects scholarships and all that, then we just got to sit down and have those conversations one-on-one, and we will. And then the next several weeks will be full of some of those. But then obviously the younger guys, they're just working hard to get ready to play again. And so obviously if they give everybody an additional year, that obviously affects a lot of things moving forward. But at the same time, I told those young guys, don't worry about that. Just focus on the things you can control and just keep getting yourself better.
All right, last one, Ken Bykoff.
Coach, I wanted to ask just how the transition from Fred to Scott has gone through some pretty rough and uncertain times. And in particular, how has Scott kind of helped the program in just dealing with the pandemic and everything that you guys have had to deal with?
Well, first of all, he's been thrust into a pretty tough situation, and so I just really, really appreciate his communication. That's the part that sticks out to me. And Fred and I had a great relationship and had a very open line of communication. That has not even, fallen off whatsoever. Matter of fact, obviously with it all going on, it's probably caused us to talk even more, but just appreciate his willingness to keep me involved in everything. Absolutely. When he gets done with meetings that we're involving just the ADs, and we call and talk afterwards, and then we have our calls together and we call and talk afterwards, and we talk before, and we just always are on the same page. And so I really couldn't be more pleased with him and the job he's doing and the tough job that he's been put in to. And I think he's the right man for the job. And even with all that's going on, he's handled it, in a great way. And I know there's a lot of tough decisions ahead for him, and he needs a lot of wisdom and support as well. But I think he's doing a great job, and it really starts with communication.
Real quick follow-up, just how important do you think it has been, because he wasn't coming from the outside, he already knew everything about that. How important was that aspect of it?
I think it's huge. More so than ever. And that gave me a lot of confidence when he was named, because we already had a relationship, and he already knew, this university, knew our football program, and knew kind of where we've been, where we're, going, and the whole vision for the program. So yeah, I think those kind of things matter, and obviously, nobody could have predicted this was going to happen, several months ago. But at the same time, I'm really thankful that a guy that's, knows Indiana, and we have a relationship of trust already built, makes a huge difference.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Appreciate you guys. Have an awesome day. Leo.